Brilliant. So, welcome to the next in the Presca Lunchtime sessions. These are the webinars with me, Rob Webben. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Presca, the world's first climate positive sportswear company. So, we're trading 15 minutes of your precious time in return for the opportunity to hear from someone incredible in our network, to be inspired and to learn from some of these brilliant people that we work with in the wider Presca community. So, I'm afraid we don't have time to answer questions, particularly, but if you drop them into the chat, absolutely we'll try to get onto them. If not, we have a LinkedIn group set up, which we will send out after this to everyone who's watching. And please join that Sustainability Changemakers group so we can get the conversation going there. So I'm really happy today to introduce Chris Zair, who is Director at Trees Not Teas, also Head of Partnerships at Undo, which is a carbon removal company. Been working with Chris for a little while now, and I think it's a genuinely really exciting project that you're working on, Chris. So over to you. I'm going to hand over just for a minute or so introduction to yourself, and then I'd love to hear what's the kind of the one big thing you'd like to talk about today, which you'd like to talk to our community about.
Awesome, thank you, Rob. It's really good to be here, and yeah, kind of as you've kind of introduced, I've been involved in a lot of different projects over the last couple of years, and I really come from a background that is not sustainability focused. If I kind of look back, I'm probably true to a lot of people listening, a lot of people out there, that yeah, I don't traditionally come from being environmentally focused as my core, or educated in that side of things. But I started out with Trees Not Teas a couple of years ago when I heard Jim Mann, the founder of Trees Not Teas, on a podcast, and actually joined the company 2 years ago when there were only a couple of us, and I've seen it grow in the kind of the race community in the UK and abroad, and it's just amazing to see how kind of something small is starting to change people's mentality when it comes to sustainability and racing, and it's kind of spawned loads of other kind of initiatives and things like the Green Runners with Darren here, and you heard from kind of the Green Runners a couple of weeks ago with David, how individuals can have a real big impact. And kind of the theme I want to talk about today is that nobody should feel powerless. Everyone can have an influence, and no matter how powerless you feel, you can actually change that and have a big impact on those around you and your own activities.
Amazing. That's so important, isn't it? That whole kind of point of we're not powerless. We can all actually do something really important. I'm interested as well. I don't think I realised, Chris, you didn't come from a sustainability background, and yet at some point you thought, this is what I've got to do. What was that change? I mean, what were you doing beforehand, out of interest?
So I've worked in kind of project management roles, business development roles for kind of 10, 12 years before I joined Trees Not Teas, and the change point was COVID, because I actually live out in Barcelona, and I had a terrace where I could kind of look and see the impact of the sky. Suddenly there were no planes coming into Barcelona, and the skies cleared up, birds were coming back, and it was just beautiful, the kind of transition over a couple of weeks. Wild boars were coming down out of the forests, and everything was kind of starting to return towards the kind of the former state, kind of the shoots, just in a couple of months. And that made me realize that I needed to have a purpose. So I wanted to have a purpose in my day-to-day life that was connected to something bigger. And that encouraged me to get in touch and start out my journey in sustainability with Trees Not Teas. And it's, as you said, we're now working with Undo, a carbon removal company, which has come from Trees Not Teas and the Future Forest Company. It's just made me realize that you can have a big impact day to day.
That's amazing. Yeah, that first kind of period of lockdown was nuts. I remember going for a run in Bristol. There was I went on a stand-up route. I went past about 5 people, maybe 1 or 2 cars, and a badger just in the middle of the street. And I was just like, "This is incredible. This is what life should be like." Anyhow, so yeah, come on, let's get on to that theme of everyone can make a difference, and how that specifically relates to Trees Not Teas and Undo, if we can.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's easy to just see the news and think, oh, these big corporations aren't doing anything, I'm not going to do anything at all. You kind of race to just kind of desperation. But in reality, what we've seen with Trees Not Teas, and Darren is a kind of a great kind of case for this is that an individual can speak to a race. So for people who don't know Trees Not Teas, we plant trees as an alternative to race t-shirts for events. And we've had a lot of trail races and starting to out with road races who have come on board because they're actively thinking about this. But the amount of individuals who have run a race and got in touch with a race organizer and said, hey, have you heard about Trees Not Teas? You're still doing t-shirt, why don't you offer this? And the race organizer says, awesome, let's do that. So that's an individual who sent one email that can then change that race organizer. And that race organizer then starts thinking, what else can I do in the sustainability space? Oh, cool, I can offer X, Y, and Z. So one individual who could have not sent that email is actually then saving a kind of a huge amount, planting trees, but also that kind of ripple effect from Trees Not Teas has just been amazing. So no one person is powerless. And you can also kind of, this will also speak to the kind of the green runners community, where a big part is your voice. Everyone, and this links into Undo as well. Everyone majority of people will work for a company, or you've got friends or family that work for companies. Those companies have a decision and a kind of a role in the green economy and kind of decarbonisation and net zero. So if you can influence a little bit those around you, those people can then go and influence the companies they work for. Those companies can make decisions. And those kind of decisions, you can speak about those decisions on social media, and suddenly a tiny little ripple, a conversation you've had, can go on to create waves of change in society. So whilst you might think your kind of direct impact is small, it can be absolutely huge through influencing those people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a kind of example of that. We were asked to quote for 60,000 event t-shirts recently. If they buy 60,000 event t-shirts from a standard supplier, that's like 120 tons of CO2. If one person or 10 people or 100 people from that event say we don't want these, we don't want these, we don't want these, at some point they're going to get the message and they're going to stop buying useless t-shirts that people don't want.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I've had a race where I was going to pick up the t-shirt. I said, I don't want it. And it kind of shocks them. If everyone does that and that race organizer is sat there with the 1,000 t-shirts, they've got to then throw that away. And that is the kind of the process of change. Just by not taking it, even if they don't have Trees Not Teas, just don't take the t-shirt and make them deal with it. And then like Rerun are doing, they're suddenly not accepting races sending the t-shirts away because they think that's job done. Oh, cool, I've sent it to Rerun, they're looking after it. Whereas in reality, that's not the case. So making it, we're not an enemy of a brand, we're not an enemy of a race organizer. We want to make it really apparent and easy for those guys to make the decision that's going to help their business as well.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we're so supportive of what you do, which is kind of counterintuitive as a brand because we make money by selling t-shirts, but I want to make money by selling the right t-shirts, which is as few as possible, the highest quality to the right people. But I think it's so important that we move away from just this kind of the standard model, which is driving so much environmental damage. And I love what you're doing. Do you find what's the reception you're getting from events companies in general?
Largely really positive when you can come through and explain the kind of the process to them. So some people have got this mentality of, oh, people love our t-shirts, it's a great advert for your race. And the beauty with Trees Not Teas is you get the choice. If someone wants the t-shirt, they can kind of take the t-shirt, and we're seeing percentages go from kind of 20% uptake for trees to 30% to 40%. And
Nice.
Really kind of building up from that side of things. And the kind of your initiative where we're potentially looking to have that alternative t-shirt maybe as a sew-on badge. So suddenly people want something, typically when you're signing up to a race, it's kind of human nature. I'm paying for a race, I want something. We've got to change that something to be something that has a lower impact on the environment. A tree is a great thing. Sometimes people like, I'm spending 70 quid on a marathon, I want the tree and something else. So if we can have that as a low cost badge that they sew on, the kind of an eco badge they sew on each year, and make that kind of a gamification like your old swimming 100-meter badges when we were younger, that's how we can kind of create that change. And it's really exciting what you guys are doing as well to change that space.
Yeah, that's great. And just for people who don't know Trees Not Teas, particularly Chris, tell us about where you're planting, what trees you're planting, and there's a lot of kind of media backlash, or I've seen around planting trees isn't always good for the environment type of thing. So how do you make sure that what you're doing is the right thing in the right place?
Yeah, it's correct that people are putting more of a focus on what kind of trees are being planted, because as we're seeing in the US at the moment, wildfires are ripping through poorly planted trees.
Right.
Because if you plant trees just for carbon, as the carbon aim, you'll plant a denser forest where there's less gaps for natural kind of fire resistance. So we are planting our trees in the UK. So we own land largely up in Scotland. We're planting tree mixes, typically 10 to 12 different species in that kind of tree species mix that we're planting. We've got a kind of lead ecologist and reforestation focused teams who have to submit the planting plans to different different approval processes. But yeah, they're all being planted here in the UK. And then you get a photo with your certificate of the tree after the race, so that gets sent through.
Brilliant. And am I right in thinking you can visit the forest or the trees once they're planted?
Yeah, so all of the kind of Scotland's got what is called right to roam, so you can come up and visit, even if we weren't letting you. But we open up all of our forests, especially once they're kind of safe and everything's been planted. There's no kind of machinery there, so we're going to be opening up all of our forests. We're going to be creating kind of engagement with local communities up in Scotland as well. So we're going to be encouraging trips to come up and kind of experience the forest, especially as they grow. A lot of the forests are only kind of maximum 2 years old, so the trees are just starting to grow. But our big aim is to kind of use the space and to introduce people and kind of educate people around what you can do here from an ecological side of things, as well as tree planting. It's not just the trees, where kind of wildflower meadows, restoring wetlands. So it's kind of a holistic approach to that land management.
Oh, it sounds incredible. I've got to book myself a trip. And if you don't mind, if we can just quickly move on to Undo as well, because that's fascinating. I think our approach to kind of sustainability in our clothing so far has been to offset the carbon with a gold standard offsetting scheme and then plant trees as well. I instinctively feel like I want to do more. And for me, that next step really is around carbon removal. So tell me about Undo. I've been looking into it. I think it's fascinating. I love what you're doing. So just, tell us a quick moment or two on that.
Awesome. Well, Undo was set up out of the Future Forest companies. We were looking at ways to permanently remove carbon from the atmosphere. So when you're talking about carbon removals, trees are great. They take quite a long time to grow.
Yep.
And the permanence, how long that carbon is locked up for, you can only really guarantee that for 100 years. But seeing these wildfires, maybe those trees could be gone if you plant them in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what we're focusing on is enhanced weathering, which is a permanent way of removing carbon from the atmosphere. You essentially take rocks like basalt, you find them so they're a kind of a byproduct that exists in a fine particle size. So you kind of a sand-like consistency. You spread that on the land. So we're working with agricultural farmers, agricultural partners. You spread it on the land, and when it rains, there's a reaction that takes place which locks up carbon from the rainwater. It kind of forms a weak carbonic acid when it reacts, and then that locks up carbon permanently in the soil, then it moves through into the water system. So we're now scaling enhanced weathering in the UK and the US because it's got the potential to remove billions of tons permanently from the atmosphere each year. But it's always been something that has been, scientists have known, but it's hard to quantify. So for it to be a carbon removal kind of a credit, you need to be able to quantify that ton. And that's what we're focused on. We're about a month away from having that kind of verified way of measuring the carbon that's removed.
Oh, amazing. So a company like ours, let's say, could come to you and say, look, we've had X number of tons of emissions this year and we want to make sure we're getting rid of them and within, a known time frame. And you will be able to say, yes, here's what we can do for you.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so great. Okay, brilliant. Chris, we're pretty much at the end of time already, which is ridiculous. But I could talk for hours with you about this stuff. How do people find out more about Trees Not Teas and Undo, first of all?
So it would be for Instagram on Trees Not Teas is probably the best way. So that's at Trees Not Teas or www.treesnotteas.com. For Undo, it's un-do.com. Someone else unfortunately had undo.com. And then you can also find us on Instagram. With Undo on Instagram, or find out more on LinkedIn if you follow us on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And then 3 questions which I always end with, if you don't mind. So what does community mean to you, Chris, and why is it important?
So to community, it's a common sense of belonging and purpose. And I think the important thing about community is you're bringing people up. That's the difference between a community and a general group. I think is bringing everyone in that group up with you.
Amazing. Why is climate important?
It's not too late, and we're going to have we will either be able to cherish the environment that we create from now on, or we're going to have to endure the climate that we create from now on. And we're at that kind of crossroads.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know what, every week I've asked this question, and I think you're the first person that said it's not too late, and we've got, such a positive message, but we have so much to do, and thank you for doing so much. And the last thing, what keeps you positive? What keeps you pushing on with these incredible projects that you're working on?
Well, I work in the climate tech space, and whilst the news and everything is showing the terrible stuff that's going on, and rightly so, I'm seeing some amazing things come out of the space. So there is hope, but that hope has to be alongside a huge amount of change. There's no solutions that are going to be a silver bullet. We need to decarbonize as much as possible, and then have these amazing solutions that can help play their role.
Incredible. Thank you. Chris, thank you. Like I say, I'm shocked, or not surprised actually, that it's gone so quickly already. I loved this chat. I really, really did. Thank you for your time. So we've learned from Chris that there is hope, especially when we're looking at projects or companies like Trees Not Teas, Undo, who are making real change, and that we can all personally make a difference through our actions as athletes, through our voices. We can all keep pushing the message and hopefully drive some real change as quickly as it needs to happen. And I don't think I knew there were wild boars in Spain, in Barcelona as well. That's epic.
So change a few run routes. Don't cross a female wild boar when it's got its kids near it.
Right, I'm not sure across any wild boar, let alone a female one with kids. So
kids being the technical term there.
Yeah, monsters, little monsters. So I hope everyone's enjoyed that chat. Really interesting, super positive and stimulating as well. It's been brilliant to hear from you, Chris. I'm going to be taking a couple of weeks off from the lunchtime sessions just for the summer holidays. We'll be back again at the end of August with Joss Ford from Enviral, who is all about marketing for companies who are making positive difference. And Joss is a really, really inspiring person to hear from. So I encourage you to dial into that one. I should say, for anyone in Bristol, we have our first pop-up shop next week. So if you happen to be around all of next week, do pop down. It's at the bottom of Park Street. We'd love to see you there. And Chris and everyone who's joined today and will watch in future, I hope you have a great summer. Enjoy your weekends, and fingers crossed you get the chance to get out in nature, spend some time on the trails to resource yourselves and keep yourself doing the incredible work you're doing. Thank you, Chris. Thanks everyone for joining us, and see you all soon.